Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording an hour before the close on Friday, January 19th. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, how we doing?
Doing good. I think doing warmer than you guys. I'm down in Costa Rica, so
Yeah, we got snow and cold here outside of DC, but the market's hot.
market is blazing.
Yeah, something's going on. There's a breakout happening here today, and we'll cover that. On the commodity side, there was a lot of action in commodities today, which could be a good sign going forward. The ones we're going to talk about, which look ready and poised to move, are wheat, coffee, and copper.
Uh-huh.
As Barry does every week, he's going to cover the big five, which is the ES, bonds, gold, crude oil, the dollar, copper, and the euro. So without further ado, let's break down the ES because it's trying to leave the 90.
Yeah, it's running hot. Well, we left off last week thinking of having a lower high because ever since this high came in, we were looking for some kind of a counter trend to see how the counter trend holds. And so usually it's a lower high. That's what we want to see. And we're trying to sell that. So we got the counter trend. We got a lower high, went down a couple of days, and then we reversed.
Yep.
And it stopped exactly at the 72 square that we talked about, a week before that
Mm-hmm.
here. Then we made a higher low. And the idea here is that, this is a great example of, price and time squaring out. And then price is not quite done, it wants to go a little further. So
Yep.
it's a good example of that. But we're not kind of out of the woods yet, because I would like to see it really settle above the 90 like we do with all the other time frames and all the other markets. Like this, how this low settled above 72, like if you go back and take a look at that. I think when things are happening like textbook perfect, there's fewer things to learn. But boy, when things go, that rare kind of move, there's a lot to learn. So here's the counter trend stopped at the 72. So that was kind of a marker, right? Because he stopped exactly at that support zone that we had. And then we moved higher. So in this zone, today I was looking at the half hour. Let's just jump to the half hour just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
There's something funny I noticed here. You see this, the pattern right there, Ben?
Yep.
See, we ran up to the 48.18, and then all night we're just kind of banging up against it, not going,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So when you see these markets like that below a critical level, this is where you get that saying, people say, well, don't sell a quiet market.
Right.
So this is very, very quiet, just going sideways, looking like nobody's interested, but it's right below a level, and
A
that's
key level. Yeah.
key level. So when it's doing that under a level, you always want to have it give you the counter trend um, before you do anything, because quiet markets always can get bought up, and just like we did here. And let's see, last week we left off somewhere in here. We came down 47.44. Support was tested. Market stopped pretty much right on the square line. We ran up into 47.90, corrected, and last night ran up to 48.18, got on top of it, tapped 48.42, which was the next level we were watching, came back to 48.18 and rallied. So my note this morning was, if we hold above 48.18, then, we're going to go up and test this zone again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not quite done. And really, for any kind of weakness, we really need to get below 48.18. That's just a must. And a bigger signal to the downside would be if we take out 47.90 and really this trend line here.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do any of that. We actually took out the trend line to the upside to go for
Yep.
go for a big finish. So what's upside? We have 48.94. It's the next level. And that's really a good solid level because it's 720 degrees up from the low that we're tracking this, which is, I can just show you guys where that was.
The October low, right?
Yeah, get down there. So right there, we're up 720 degrees right there. So that's a key sort of level as far as squares go, because we had 2 cycles up to 360 degrees. So we'll watch that. And in the meantime, we're waiting to see if price can hold above the break of the 90, right? That's the key thing.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, it's just so funny because what we're dealing with now is just a perfect place for some kind of a false break,
Mhm.
So we have to really watch that. But I would say looking at the 30-minute, long as we're above this 48.42, consolidating in here, 48.94 is really the next target up. And that's a solid target. So let's see how we get there. Getting back on to the daily. So we saw here's a higher low, came up, broke the triangle to the upside, very positive. We broke through the 90, but that's really not enough for me. I would like to see it sort of settle above it, meaning we have a high and a low bar above it, not half and half. And that might happen next week. But because it's just just the pattern, how it's breaking through, I'm always cautious about a potential false break. So for me, there's really nothing to do here because we're right up against this level. We need to either clear it. Fine. If we clear that, we'll have more to go. No question about it. If we're going to false break and come back down, then we have to deal with it, deal with it accordingly. Anything you want to add to that, Ben?
Not just that the move is clearing squares and doing things that you would need to do to be bullish, and so you can't fight it.
No, you don't want to fight this. You want to fight, you want to go with it.
That's right.
So it's in a very, very strong. I mean, this is a very strong angle it's carrying. So long as it's moving it through there, let it do its thing, trade in the direction. There's nothing to fight. The tack you want to take is if we get back below 48.51 in a hurry, we take out today's low, like Monday, Tuesday, that would call it a false break.
Yeah.
Right?
There's also a little ABCD going on there you could draw in.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
We're almost at the target already.
So that could complete it too. Thanks for reminding me.
So that's a possibility. But until we get back below that 90, and like you said, taking out the low of today, it's bullish.
I mean, we have till the 23rd. That's when we match up price and time. The legs are equal. So high on the 23rd would be fine. So that's timing wise. But price wise, we only have one, which is the 90. So let's just go with 48.51. If we get under that, that's sort of the first sign. And if we get under today's low, I'd call that the second sort of the sign, right? Other than that, stay the course till we finish up. Let's see how we finish.
Does this also look like it could be like the final push here because we've done several waves up, and that last one looks like it was the little fourth type thing?
True. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that would be big, right?
Yeah. It would be. So it's something to watch.
And that means we'll have to clear the 48.50 and go on up, almost, we're going to get way past 5,000.
Right.
And these ABCD moves happen more often than you'd think. I want to show you this. Can you see this screen over here?
Yep.
And it's not exactly, but this is what you want to look for.
It's similar.
It's very similar. So the high came in here, right? High came in, little false break, right? Here's a perfect counter trend. One day up, next day outside reversal and down. Then we do this, very painful ABCD up.
New highs.
Pardon me. Yeah.
New highs. Yeah.
And we hung around there, did another little false break right there, broke down, counter trend, and boom, 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 right? And that took us all the way down into October. So these things can end. I mean, here's a good example. High came in right there, false break, mess around, do the little extended move and finish up. And the ABCDs are reliable. So we want to watch it. That's why I'm not all in on this. Unless we settle above 48.51. Let's say we hit all this and it's all fine. We might mess around a little bit. But you can also see, I mean, I'm looking at 48.51, from the perspective of the October low, we're up 90, right? But it's also, we built up some support now, right? We have these old highs. Now that's a support level. And so we want to see, if it gets too high, we come back down, that's going to be very solid support. But
Right.
if we take it out, slip out of it next couple of days before price establishes itself, like, not be able to establish any lows up there, then I think it could show, what we saw up here, which is more like an ending of a leg. End came here, A, B, C, D, and then finish up. So I would just want to point to that. And so there's two things here we're talking about. We're talking, yeah, it's breaking up, it's bullish, great. But we want to see price settle above the 48.51, and then we can look at the next leg up, because now we have an entire square, at least half a square lined up. If we can't do that, and the bars are sort of half and half in here, and the ABCD finishes it up, meaning low of the high bar that puts in the ABCD is taken out, then I would say that signals again that ABCD setup is working to the downside, right? We terminated, now we're finished. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, there's two ways to go. That's really it. And they're both very easy to follow.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get on to the monthly. Monthly is also breaking out. How about that? We haven't made air above it, but if you notice, the open and the close is well above the 81, right? I mean, the open was right there at 81,
Right.
and we moved higher. I mean, I love this strength, and this is what you get. This is what you get after a couple of almost a month of going sideways. And that's the thing we got to watch, So it's either this is going to be a false break, or once it settles above that, it could really open up really for a good a real push. And I say real push here because of the angle of attack, right? We're really, really steep into this. And these steep kind of markets really have this blow-offish kind of a feel to them, And I'm not they're not a great indicator of a healthy bull market, which should just sort of pull back and correct and move, move normally. So when we have this really quiet periods and then blistering moves, and if the blistering moves are really, gapping and moving hard, gapping the SPX anyway. So then we set up to something well above 5,000, right? I mean, look, we're up at 52.60.
Right.
And I mean, it's the same pattern I showed you guys on the daily. I mean, that would be this high came in, and here's the ABCD finishing up that grand sort of a high here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean by that? Do you see how it's the same thing as a daily, right? But a bigger version of it.
Sure.
It's the same deal. We had the high. I mean, we had the high here, false break, counter trend high, move down, and here's the ABCD that's going to push all the way out. So that's the potential. So I'll leave it on there. We'll see how all that works out.
See how it tracks.
Yeah. And the second thing is the fact that we took it out this way means there's another stronger cycle that's working in here. So the 81 might be done for now. We might be switching into a 90 possibly. So I'll put that on for you guys next week. So anything you want to add to this one?
No, it bears watching because when you clear resistance, if you stay above it, it's going to keep going. No matter how high you think it is, oh my God, it can't go any higher. It will.
Yeah, it will. And especially if you keep saying that.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Man, I know a guy back in the day, he shorted the entire market all the way to the top and basically lost a family fortune, Wow. So you don't want to do those things. Just go with it.
Don't,
because if it's going down, you're gonna have plenty of time,
Yep.
And it's clearly going up, so go with it.
It'll lose the key levels, and then you'll know.
Yeah. And here we're not gonna get all dramatic because we're at a key level, and they're not that close. We don't get them very close together. So, 700 points, it's a big deal. So when we get there, we have to deal with it. Rest of the time, okay, not so much. The other thing I wanted to tell you was this kind of behavior, it has to do with capital flows. And I'm wondering if this is sort of have to do with the sort of unrest in the Middle East and
All
Europe.
over the world. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So,
pretty much.
so money's coming here. That makes
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly. So and if that's the case, these things can catch fire and just go. And
That
that
makes sense.
ABCD we saw is going to be nothing,
Hmm.
If the capital flow starts coming, I mean, there's not enough places to park all that money. So it would have to go in the market. And that's why we don't want to be too foolish here. Because if we catch the traction and that's what's happening, then it could be huge. Let's move on to bonds, who definitely caught some traction to the downside.
Yeah.
So bonds have been pretty good. We're doing an ABCD down. We went up to 72. We talked about if 124 is taken out, it's going to be weaker. And we were looking for the counter trend, and the counter trend stopped below 124, like we talked about last couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And we sold off, and here's our support sort of the level. And I have 119.16 right there. And
And it
look where we
held.
stopped.
Yeah.
Right on the money. Now, if we can't leave this zone, because this zone is kind of a little bit magnetic. So if we get in here in a couple, 3 days and we can't really leave and take out 119.16, 110.5, 119.16 or half right in that, then we got the 50% of the square, which is 116.09, right? I think that's possible. So let's watch it. So for that to happen, 1916 has to be taken out, right? In the meantime, we squared out. So we're looking at this as a new trend. But, it might not be trending perfectly, but just keep an eye on those levels. Anything you want to add, Ben?
No, I think that on the bonds, my key level was 119.23 is a weekly half square. So
Well, that's
right,
within our
right,
box
yeah,
here,
right
right?
in your box there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's an important spot.
Let's look at the weekly bonds, so weekly, it was pretty cool. We were looking at this box and we talked about this high a few times. And that's when that 72 got hit on the daily. And we were looking for it to slip lower, and we slipped lower. And now we're slipping lower, even lower.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then now this line here, the 123 level becomes pretty decent resistance. You can see, 2 weeks, the highs really couldn't hold above it right there. We dropped below that. Remember last week I said, hey, we have an inside bar. If we take out the low, we're going to probably slip. Remember that? So
Hmm.
here's our inside bar, took out the low, and we're slipping. So there's that.
Yep.
And if we continue to slip, we're probably going to slip to 114 and then a little lower.
Right.
This could be kind of itching for like a 180. So let's see how it goes. Let's deal with this first, get this thing rolling off the start.
What's interesting is the weakness in bonds and the strength in equities. That's a change.
Well, this is why I'm kind of suspecting that the strength in equities, I'm trying to find like what's happening here,
Hmm.
So, and I don't think the bonds are hardly ever wrong.
No.
So it's probably the equities that are like flying on their own for now. So let's see.
Right.
Let's see. But yeah, very good point. Very good point. All right. So that would be the bonds. Let's take a look at crude oil. Behaving very well within the little triangle. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's just chopping around.
I just think it's mind blowing with all the potential crazy news. Crude is just like half asleep.
Yeah, so that I mean,
It's like
you can't.
sleepwalking through everything.
Yeah, you can't. It knows something we don't know, right? That everything's pointing towards craziness in the Middle East is going to affect crude and the supplies, and this thing is yawning.
Yeah. I mean, let's watch it, right?
It's just
Let's watch it.
lolling around in this triangle.
Yeah, I mean, the chart will always give you advance notice,
Hmm.
and you can see, how I would break it down is we never got down to this 64.75. All right, and that's sort of a key level. We held above that, then we made higher low and another higher low. Yeah. So now we're in this, getting to the end of this triangle. We're really tightening up. Sure, we could do this for another week. But what do we know about crude? The longer we consolidate tightly, the bigger the move coming out of it.
Yep.
Like we did here. You remember this one? I mean, what was it,
Hmm.
2 months?
Yep.
earlier, and boom, so it all shows up at some point. So let's watch this closely because these triangles can break on both sides. But I'm not just relying on that. I'm looking at the square that we had here. That's 54 by 54. So and that's holding still. All right. So made the low. So I'm just, kind of watching. I think it's okay. I don't think we have to be bullish or bearish. I think we need to watch to see if we can get above the 73.50, which will help it push above the half square. And then we're off to the races. So there's a lot of fast money to be made here. I don't think it's to the downside. So let's watch it. Anything else you want to add to this? Or
That's it.
we're good? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we can come up with a lot of theories for why it's doing this, but
And the only thing I would add, I'm looking at my notes. We have a weekly inside bar and a monthly inside bar. So that tells you what's been happening. That tells you it's sideways.
It's definitely sideways, and we're just right hanging at the 50% of that square, That's why I'm saying if we take, if we manage to, and look at all these higher lows coming in there. See that?
Yep.
So yeah, I think the push is to the upside, and some of the energy stocks really took off. So like Peabody and everything really took off last couple of days. So let's watch what happens. My thing is, like, we really didn't get down to the real lows. We held well above. Even if you look at these lows, low, higher low, right? See that? So the overall trend is not pointing to a sell-off.
Right. Let's let it play out.
And that's the thing, if it's not going to sell off, then, look at this nice roundish pattern that is building up. So, all right, that's enough for crude. Gold is behaving very well. It came down. We came down to the 50% of the square, which is the support we were talking about last week. We tapped it, and 2 days up. I don't have a whole lot to say. It looks like it's consolidating for now because these are not quick pullbacks that you buy. These are long-term, kind of a longish corrections. So it's not in a burning bull market, but it's bullish versus bearish. And it's more bullish because we were able to hold above this 50% of the square.
Yeah. It's triangulating in a bullish structure right now.
There you go. That's a good way to say it. And it sure is. Here's a triangle, right?
Yep, there it is.
So, and gold is like that, when it gets moving, it gets moving. When it's not, it ain't.
And right now it ain't.
Yep.
But it's not bearish either.
No, it's not bearish. Not with this kind of a chart.
No.
So, well, not much to say, man. We're just squeezed in between 2000 and this 2060, 50% square. That's coming from, lows long time ago. So I think let's just play it out. Let's wait for it to play out. Now, if you notice the pullback, we came down to test almost 2000. If we take out this week's high, we have a reversal in place. So let's watch that. Lows, well, we do have a lot of support. I'm not surprised we bounced off that 2000, and we have the highs here, highs there, highs there. You know what I mean? There's plenty of support there. So let's just
let it play out.
Yeah, let it play out, finish its process. So let's move on to copper.
Copper kind of looks interesting.
It looks interesting. I saw it tap the kiss of this from below this, earlier. And I'm like, oh, it's probably going to drop, but no, kind of corrected. So we talked about this 50%, this 383. And long as we're below that, let it just be there. We're not going anywhere in a hurry. So let that be the case. If we can get above it, fine. Then we can go. I'm just not in the mood to think like this is worth shorting, like shorting copper, got some balls, unless we're, up in the highs, right? Up in the high areas. We're kind of smack in the middle of it. So I'm not looking for anything special. I think there are better things to trade. So looking at copper weekly, we did that ABCD. So now correcting. Actually, this is, you can almost call it a kiss from above, right? We
Yeah,
came
that's
back
what
and
I was seeing. Yeah.
yeah, we came back and tapped that trend line. We did it last week and did it again, but this time, some buying came
Closing out
in.
on the highs. Yeah.
Mhm. And I put this 364 in a few weeks ago, saying that as long as it's above that, the chart is essentially bullish. I mean, it's essentially bullish as long as we're above the 90, but for short term, we can use that as a marker. And so we're still well above that. Let's see how we consolidate. And this is also a little bit like crude, we can consolidate for a while and then all of a sudden it's gone. So
Mm-hmm.
so watch it closely. Watch it closely because because we want to know what the next step's going to be.
Right.
So that 383 is a level to watch there.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the dollar, yeah, we broke out of the triangle to the upside. We got exactly to the square and we stalled out. So we really need to sort of get above the square is really the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Square is at 103.60. And, 3 days we bunched up against that square. So if we can manage to get above, I think we'll be in good shape. Didn't quite do an ABCD, but let's see how this consolidation goes. If this is running five waves, then we got a 1, 2, 3, and then a 4, and maybe one more. And if that one more can get above 50%, then I think it's setting up for a stronger move to go take out, at least go check 107. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I see it. Other than that, obviously it can consolidate in here, but right now it's in a pretty strong position. The only sort of fly in the ointment is that we hit the 50% and we stalled out. Know what I mean, Ben?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like what to do. Give it a couple of days, see how it works
See
out.
if it can push through.
Yeah. Essentially the low around 100.5, that support level came in. And so the next level is really 50% of the square. See how that works out.
It did sit on top of your box before it took off, which is nice.
Yeah, and we did the triangle, we broke out.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it just looks all kind of bullish. I don't see a
It's
problem.
just stair stepping up.
Yeah. I think it's okay. It looks
Mm-hmm.
okay. And if this capital flow idea is true, other currencies are starting to get weaker, then obviously
The dollar will get stronger.
yeah, dollar's going to get stronger here. So, and we'll be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the weekly dollar. We came down to the 90, which is sort of the marker for, if the dollar is going to be bullish, we have to hold above. That's what I've been sort of saying every week, like for the last 5 years. So, and we held above it on the pullback and we were rallying and really basis weekly, we can actually get up into this 104, 104 and a quarter before we head on up. So let's see how that works out. But you can certainly trade the short term with what we already have, except, on the daily, we hit that middle of the square, 50% of the square. We have to just back off a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you want to let that correct off and finish up. All right, moving on to the euro. Not much. It also dropped and consolidating. We have support at 1080. And there's an ABCD that goes lower. So I'd say to let it work out. It's in a downtrend. So trade the short side till we get to support. That's what I would say. And weekly euro, we talked about 108, this line here, as long as we're above that, it's kind of on firm ground. So really for it to sell off and people to get a little bit panicked, we have to get under this. And we haven't done that. And we could do it, heck, we could do it in one day. So let's see how that works out. For now, this 110, actually 111 almost is resistance and 108 is support. We're kind of trapped in there for a couple of weeks. And next week, either we're going to tap it and take it out or tap it and bounce. So we'll watch that.
The box is in a good spot.
Box is in a good spot. Let's see how it pans out. I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a quick look at natural gas for our natural gas fans. So this is why this is called the Widowmaker, right?
Yes.
Now you guys know where we get the name.
Yep.
And So, all right. So we had that move. It looked pretty good, but we couldn't really leave the gravity of the box.
Yep.
And now we're back down to the 120-degree level from the high. And it seems to rotate. We talked about how it's kind of um, rotating around this level, and we really needed to sort of break out and get to the other side. And I think last couple of weeks, one day I was saying, if we can sort of settle above the 347, 350 level,
Could
like we
really
tried to
run.
do here,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if we can get above here, settle above, then we know this nonsense will be done by then, and now we can get moving. But it's the same thing as crude oil, same talk. The longer we put in this kind of bottom, the better
Bigger the move.
bigger the
Hey,
move. So
Barry, you want to see some real potential fuckery? Put an ABCD on the last two moves from
right
up
here,
that, yeah, from up there.
so A, B, C, D,
Yep.
like that.
It'll go down and rattle the cages at the lows.
Let's see what that looks like.
Yep.
I mean, they all do that, before really
Mhm.
big moves, there's always some kind of rattling that happens.
Yep. So
So
this is a possibility,
well, there you go. That would be just about perfect.
wouldn't it?
Yeah. And it would only take like just a couple of ticks to take out that low,
Right. Take out all the
14,
stops and all the low.
and then rally off. Yeah, that could be.
So
So,
let's see.
and normally these bottoming, topping patterns do expire, on a ABCD. So it's good
Let's
to
see.
watch that.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of false moves in the wrong direction before they go in the right direction,
Right.
or the one they intend to take it.
Correct.
And here are some. I mean, look, if you look at the highs here, here's a low right here, long low. I mean, not as long as this, but putting in a low, false break on up.
Go. Yep.
Got to the high. Uh, here's the high, false break, down.
Yep.
Came back up, false break, down. Went back up, made a high here, looked really weak into here. I think this is a new contract, but still ran up to the 50% square, down, right?
Yep.
So it happens a lot. And so let's see when it works out. We've got time.
Exactly.
Let's see what else we got here. I put this box in, I think last week we talked about this could square
Yeah.
out here. And there is an ABCD that could be winding it up, but it turns out there's another ABCD winding it out.
Mm.
So let's put that in. And this is why I'm bringing in about capital flows, because you see where the S&P is, you see where the Hang Seng is, right?
Yeah.
So something is up, and we're very close to this ABCD here. It looks like about the 23rd, the same
Mm-hmm.
24th, So let's watch that. And that level is 14,925. Let's see how that works out, to hold
Right.
there or not. Otherwise, might as well do the full 144 and get down to 13,500 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really interesting how we're almost making new lows and we're making new highs. So there's definitely something happening with capital flows,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you see that. Well, I want just to touch this for a second. I don't know if we have time. Let me see what else we have. The other thing, speaking of capital flows, we want to look at the Dow. It didn't quite take it out, but it's just poised for a false break. We just ticked above it today. Didn't take out the 90, so it's perfect for a false break. I'm just going to leave it there. Let's see what happens. And this is why I'm a little bit cautious. Know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. I do.
So I'll leave it at that. Let me put it back to you, and we'll continue with your stuff. Well, Ben, we got another ABCD completion.
Yep.
And a kiss from below.
And a little under kiss. Yep. So
a lot of temptation there.
I mean, it's uncanny, right, Barry? Like exactly like your review on the ES, we're looking at a similar situation here. Is this are we going into some melt off blow up move, or is this a major head fake where, we're making a new high, but we're not going to hold it? And we don't have enough information yet to say one way or another which way it's going to go,
Right.
And but what we do have and what we do rely on, we go back on, is our levels, right? We look at the levels and we say, okay, we know as long as it's above this half square,
Yeah.
And the half square here is 17,180. As long as we're above there, it's bullish. And you have to say the probability is increased and is a higher probability that we're going to melt up and we're going to really tack it on and stretch out here. How high we don't know, but it's possible.
Right.
Above, this is the next level that, if they can't get below the half square, around 17,900 is the level where we're going to go to and we're
Right.
going to push to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the next stand that the bears can make is up there. So while everything looks great because, the market broke out, it's making a new high, like you have that little bit of caution. I think you got to have a little bit of caution here. And it's not that you go out and you short it and say, oh, this pig's going to roll over. We don't know that, but you don't buy the high willy nilly, not knowing whether or not we're going to get a false break.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until we have a test on this, or we come up here into resistance and fail, we really have to just sort of be observers and look for clues. Now, you and I talked about this as well. There are divergences that are appearing, not like 4 minute or 30 minute or even 60 minute. These are big divergences, daily, weekly, monthly, that ultimately need to get resolved and ultimately need to be dealt with. It's
Yeah.
nothing that's going to affect trading on Monday or Sunday night, but again, you put that in the back of your mind and you know that that's there and that's a piece of evidence that you have to hold on to and say, okay, it's not full steam ahead yet. So,
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll cover it next week because we're not quite there yet.
mhm.
That square we had was really the 45-degree, right? It was a 45 by 90 is where we all came up to the first
Yep.
high.
90 in points, 45 in time.
So
Yep.
that's just the 45. So we have a 90 degree, 90 in time coming up, and that
That's
comes in
true.
March 1st,
That's true.
So we'll be watching for all those things.
And isn't it interesting? March 1st, because March 8th, I believe, is the next Rebel Yell hit.
There you go.
They tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's take a quick peek at the weekly and the monthly, just so you can see what's going on the higher time frames. Not dissimilar to the daily, is that we had a little pullback, only one bar reversed, and now we close on the highs this week. Which means that there's some chasing and some momentum there. So a lot like we want to see, the daily hold that half square. Here we want to see this full square holds, and that's around, call it, 16,900. If we can pull back and sit on top of that, super bullish. Super bullish. So another level to watch. Monthly, similar story, right? We're pushing through. This, you can see we were crossing the full square. This bar we crossed it, but a little less. You see, there's only there's fewer price action this month that's been below that bar, or this full square. And the full square here is, call it 16,650. So if we can finish the month there above that, new month February will print a full bar potentially above that. That's bullish. The other thing that could happen is, we go up into the bar and then, go up into the full square and turn back down too. And that would be uh uber bearish, as you were talking about too. If we lost those key levels in the ES, that sort of thing here would be uh a really strong signal of a monthly type of top. So yes, it's bullish. Yes, it's a breakout. We need to watch pullbacks to see if they hold these key levels. And, Barry even showed you the levels, you could drop down, he showed you 30-minute levels that you could drop down and it could give you clues even earlier if something is off. And I think you can do the same thing on the NQs. You could drop down to shorter time frames if you really wanted to see, granularly what's going on here at this as it breaks out. Anything else to add on the NQs?
No, we're good. You did full coverage.
Okay. Let's check out Bitcoin. Bitcoin's an example of what we were saying potentially could happen, right? with both NQs and ES. We were doing this choppy sideways. We got to sell the news type of bar. But look, this looked like a complete breakout, right? We were pushing through the full square, making new highs, and then what happens? Sellers come in. They sell the news. And as soon as we got a bar stuck under, look what happened. Big down bar.
Right.
And so now the key level here is this half square. And that half square is around 42,380. As long as we're below that, the pressure is going to push down to this full square and this sort of old high support that will, resistance that is now support. But this is a perfect example of, what may happen in those other markets, the ES and the NQs, that we have to be not saying, oh my God, that's going to happen. We're not in the prediction business. We're looking at, what does price action tell us is more probable? And here in Bitcoin, as I said, when we got stuck below that full square, that was the signal. Hey, something's not right here. This high is a false break. So we'll watch it. The bias right now is to the downside on Bitcoin. Let's see if this turns out to be a correction, or if this turns out to be a super significant high, we'll start taking out, support and resistance will hold on the way back up and on counter trends.
Ben, there's a steep ABCD that ends up at 36,000.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's your half square or not, but it's
Let's see. This one here.
Yep.
That's a little below.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, right in that area.
That's worth watching.
Absolutely. So we watch. This is a good juxtaposition, though, with what we just saw in the NQs, because it potentially could be showing you what may be coming. And also remember, NQs, if we hold those levels, they're going to keep running. So it's not time to be a hero and jump in and short it. Let it play out. Let it give you the clues. On the commodity side, as we were talking about, Barry, there was a lot of activity in the commodities today. The grains all looked like they caught a bid. Every single one of the softs were up today. I don't know why or what the fund flows were saying there, but for some reason it looked like there was a concerted effort to get long some of this stuff, and maybe that's a sign of what's potentially coming. We're going to talk about and review a couple commodities. We'll review wheat and we'll review coffee. Copper, I just want to mention, Barry covered it. We got a little daily reversal today, and the monthly half square is at 381. So if we can get a close over that 381, which is right in the same area as your 383, that was super important, I think copper would look really interesting, and I think we would do a deep dive on it and really want to start watching it and see about entering in positions there. But let's go talk about wheat first, because that really looks interesting. Unlike corn and soybeans, which were making new lows this week, wheat's making a higher low. Barry made the big giant call when I was talking about wheat in here, saying we may have had the low. He said that is the low, and so far it's holding and holding very well. We have potentially a higher low right here. Not only did it come in on the full square, but at the intersection of these two trend lines, with a little back kiss on this huge downtrend line from the highs. This was the highs, after the Russian invasion. So that's a pretty significant high. And we just back kissed that trend line. So the reversal today is nice. Yesterday, when we made the low, it spiked down and we closed on the high. So last 2 days, we've seen money come into wheat. I think this may be the higher low and potentially can give us, that third move or fast move higher. So I want to be all over wheat, especially because of the relative strength that it's shown versus the other grains, by putting in a higher low and have its low be that November low so far. Let me take a quick look at the weekly and show you where the low came in here. So this higher low we got, again, the back kiss of the the steep downtrend line from the early 2022 highs, and we found support on the full square, which is what you want to see, right? Now, next week, I'd like to see this week's high get taken out. So anything over 602 and a quarter, we have a weekly up bar, which will give us a nice reversal right off of the full square. Anything else you have to add in wheat, Barry?
What's important here is that the low came in exactly on the square,
Mm-hmm.
and the kiss back, so the slide back onto the downtrending trend line.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, what we really need at this point is to sort of stabilize above 613 is the level I have. If we can do that, I think we'd all feel a little bit better. So
Sure, that's right about there.
yeah, it's not far, but
No.
we really need to kind of stabilize above it. And we looks like we tried earlier before the contract change, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'll get back in there.
It looks good. I
Looks
think
good, looks good.
the low call you made a couple months ago is a good one, and now it's just trying to catch this next fast move here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Let's keep an eye on wheat this week. Now let's go talk about coffee. What's interesting to me about coffee is we had this, we called out this low as the low came in last fall. We had this really nice strong move up that squared out. And then we've had this pullback, and the pullback has done a nice 27 by 27 square at the low on the 19th.
Mm.
So I think, and look at the bar, right? We made the low, opened here, sold off, and then closed near the high. That's a nice bar, a lot like the copper bar we saw and the wheat bar we saw today. This was that evidence of money coming in here. And I'm thinking that we got this, this first leg up. This is your first pullback, and now we could be really ready to go. Let me see what else I have. The other view I wanted to give you was the weekly to show you this pullback. You can see it came right on this 5/8 line.
Mm-hmm.
Look where these two highs were over here.
Yeah, very nice.
So it's a nice sort of check back, giving us structural support. Made the low, closed near the high. Again, we want to see if this bar and this action we saw the last couple of days of money coming into this commodities. We want to see that next week we make a higher high on a weekly, which would be over 187.10.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a good sign that this low that came in is a good one. What
Right.
say you about coffee?
Well, I say we have a 50% retracement, which kind of is a big deal. It's the correction that Gann always talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So if it holds, then this could be the pullback, before we moved on.
Right.
And so it's important. It's important low that you nailed. It's
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah. There's your
So
50% retrace. Yep.
mm-hmm. And 5/8, that's what it comes out to be. So it's a very important level.
And
And that's enough.
I was going to say, and according to Gann, that's bull market behavior, right? You rally and then you pull back 50%.
Yes, yes. I mean, that would be a really healthy, that's what we call like a healthy bull market, not this go sideways and scramble and do a couple of flips and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And the other thing is how the pattern I see is how we sat on top of the November highs.
Yes.
Came back right November highs, so it's really good. It's textbook corrections. Coffee's trading really well.
So let's see if coffee juices it up. Barry, given what we've talked about, that's it for the commodities this week. Like I said, it's a light week. There were a lot of and was a lot of movement with the last 2 days in commodities. So this week will be a very important week, seeing if we get some follow through there. Barry, what are the clues that you're going to look at in ES and the other sort of risk markets, for the earliest possible signal that, hey, we're going to run here. There's a substantial run coming, or hey, this is potential fuckery they're doing here at these highs.
Right. Well, it's the same pattern. I mean, we looked at how the high came in at the 45. Then we're watching this other ABCD that's going up into a high where NASDAQ actually exceeded it by just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to see, at least for the ES, to have it settle above this 4850 area, 4850, 4851.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be nice to have some air above it, above that level, which means the low of that bar is higher than 4851.
Right.
If we can do that, then the probability starts shifting towards, we have more upside.
We got to run. Yeah.
We got to run. Now, the weakest signal would be like today, the Friday bar stays like that. And in a couple of days, let's say we have an inside bar, then we take out the low of the inside bar, eventually
Right.
taking out the low Friday bar. So that would be, sort of the weaker setup of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. It's either we're going to break out upside and settle above it, or we're going to slip under. If we're going to slip fast or slow, this is the question. It's really an incredible spot, because the weekly also broke out, but the Dow didn't. So that's why I'm kind of waiting for it to clear. I always do anyway. I mean, if you're using square, we want to, when we get to sort of a junction point, you want to, well, a decision point, like you call them, we want to make sure that it either clears it or it doesn't. It's basically resistance or support, and we just want to clear that. And
that's one of your big strengths is you have the patience and the discipline to wait. There's you've done a really good job of insulating yourself from the FOMO, because when things get going, everybody gets, anxious of, not scared of losing money, but scared of missing out. And you've done a good job of detaching yourself from that and saying, hey, let it play out. Let it show us what's more likely to happen.
I mean, if you look at enough charts, you see how patience pays off.
And I think that's the key, right? You got to spend the time with the charts because you've seen it over and over again, what happens and how it plays out. That the times when it just runs straight up away from you are so remote and so few that to fear missing out is really not playing the odds and not playing the probabilities. You get the pullbacks, you get a chance where it shows you and gives you a better entry from a risk reward standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, and there are layers to it, like you do, how you like to get in on the 4-hour, which is an early low risk entry. Once you can kind of confirm the low, you wait for the 4-hour to set up. You still wait for the 4-hour to set up,
Absolutely. Yep.
And so it really depends on your strategy and your system and, a lot of those other variables. But basically, you don't have to really catch a corner to trade. I mean, to make any money.
Right.
So there's really nothing to miss. I mean, look at the low in coffee in October. We're watching that. It came in there. You didn't have to catch that. You had 1-2 days up, and then we had a pullback.
Here was a nice spot to catch.
Then there was like a real correction.
Yep.
Ran back up. Let that finish up again, and so you had all these little opportunities within breakouts and little consolidations, but you had to really watch it. I was talking to my son the other day about showing how you really have to look at each bar very closely. I mean, it's one thing to kind of have a macro view of the charts, like we're looking here, we're looking at the big picture and the levels, but it's also important to really watch the bar to bar interaction, like what happened yesterday, the day before, what happened today. And like coffee, like, it's very strong because we went down for 2 days and we reversed and we took out yesterday's high.
Yep.
Thursday high. So that's, it's fairly strong, which means that down move we had for Thursday down leg, Wednesday, Thursday down leg was really kind of washing out those lows, a little bit before that.
Yeah, washing this
there.
level out. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So you have to watch all the little patterns, and that's when you really kind of get the gist of it. Now look at the top of the triangle. So December high, we had a high, right? Then we wait for the counter trend. So there's the counter trend right there. So as
Mhm.
soon as the counter trend starts, it's the same thing we did in the S&P. You want to see when the low of the high bar gets taken out. And you can see it's very clean, boom. On the next day, low of the high bar gets taken out. Well, you want to be on the short side.
Yep.
Why? Because you already have a lower high in place. Now, if you do that on every setup, odds are really in your favor. No, you can't really beat that. Now, sometimes you might have to try it twice, but man, your risk is so little, and risk reward is 5 to 1, 10 to 1.
Yep.
So uh, depending on how long you hold it, right? So,
Absolutely.
but it really is worth the wait for it to show its hand and not have to try to pick a high or try to get in the way. And once it gets moving, I mean, that's what we have all these trend indicators, right? Once momentum starts moving, it actually keeps going. I mean, it might not be a straight line, but it keeps going till we get to the next resistance point.
Mhm.
And you just have to be patient and trade that. I mean, take coffee here. Coffee is not known to be the easiest market to trade, but if you take the April high, right? April high came down. Here's a pullback, came in under the square, couldn't really get above it, right? And if you look at that, came down, took out the low, third bar. Then we had tiny little inside day, and then down hard, right towards the
Mhm. Down
50%.
there. Yep. Yep.
And it came back again banged off
Full
against the
square.
square,
Mhm.
came down 2 days, 3 days, 1 day counter trend, and outside reversal. So that's really weak. See what I mean? Like you really have to watch that.
Mhm.
If you miss that counter trend, I don't know what day that is, but that outside reversal after that 1 day pullback right there. Yeah. So
June
June
16th.
16th, right?
Yep.
Now
Yep.
after that, look how little that risk is, and that sets you up all the way, right?
And this is what you like to call the stress-free trading, right in here.
Exactly. Once you get it in there, that's
Right.
it. You put your stop at break even and you're free to go. And where do you get the next opportunity? Well, it's not everywhere. You wait for it to get to the 50% of the square right
Yep.
there,
Mhm.
right? Reversed. Next day took the low of the high bar out. And also you had a couple of inside days to get positioned, and then boom, boom. Where do you go? Right to the full square.
Yep. Support.
Yeah. So that's where you kind of cover the most of the position, because we know that's support.
Yeah.
And then we bounce around again. If you just use, landings and takeoffs from the square lines, you're catching portion of it at lower risk,
Right.
you know, as opposed to just jumping in. I think this is the low, I think that's a high.
Right. Right.
Like
Which,
nobody,
listen,
nobody
we
made
all,
money long consistently thinking about it.
I
Like
don't know if you did that as a newbie trader, but I certainly did, and it became an ego thing. Like when you make these huge calls and you have to jump in at a high or a low, then you get stuck with admitting you're wrong,
yeah,
right? Instead of just saying, if it does this, I'm going to do that. If it does this, I'm going to do something opposite. And once you have the setup and the framework before you get in there, and then there's no like, oh no, it's going to come back. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. You don't fall into that trap because you have the levels with the squares, and you have a defined entry and a defined exit.
right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
mean, you have to think in terms of probability. There's no other way.
right,
There's no other way.
because we're dealing with an unknown.
Totally unknown, but you'll know your probabilities based on the system that you're going to be using. So you can't really keep all that in memory. I mean, if you know your system, then you know what the odds are. Then you just pull the trigger, take the trade, pull the trigger, take the trade, and that's
Right.
really all you can do.
That's
Like
it.
some of the biggest trades have been ones where I wasn't so sure. Like, it doesn't look like it's going to do it, but I got to take it anyway.
Right. Because it fulfilled the requirements in the setup that you trade off of.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get to swing at the right balls, that's when you're going to hit those home runs. Otherwise, you know, it's almost like batting because you don't really have enough time to think.
That's right. That
You know?
is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we appreciate all you followers and everybody that watches the channel. Please share the videos with your friends, your colleagues, your enemies, anybody. We're interested in trying to grow the channel this year. So please subscribe, like, ring the bell, and do all the things that YouTube wants to do. Great show today, Barry. Good review. I know we are at a very important juncture, and I think the information provided will be really helpful to people. So great job, and have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Ben, and good job also. Good coverage. You're always on top of all the commodities that are about to move. So
Try
I
to
mean,
be.
that's a big deal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a difficult job to keep track of everything to see what's getting ready to move, and you've been nailing it all year. So
The
last
good
year.
news is with the system that we use, it's you just wait for the triggers, right?
Yeah,
You scan it, you wait for the triggers, and then you talk about the possible setups.
yeah,
So
very good.
thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Barry.
All right, everybody, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Ciao.
Bye.